Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Meditation for Lawyers. I'm George Felos. If you were expecting mediation for lawyers, sorry, this is not mediation for lawyers. Invariably, we have one or two people think they're taking a mediation seminar. But if you are a mediator and you're with us this morning, I hope you stay and join us. A calm demeanor is very helpful in mediation. So this might help you a bit. And this is not medication for lawyers. We will not be dispensing any drugs, but we have had reports of increased endorphin production from some participants. So if you happen to feel really good after this hour, it's your own self-medication. I'm here with Will Nickel. He is my collaborator and technical wizard. So Will, say hi to everyone, please.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here.
Okay, so if you hear a voice, out there, it is it's Will. It's not an apparition. Thank you all for attending. It is truly an honor to be here with you this morning. And thank you, lawyers all across the country for attending. We have lawyers from California, Oregon, Pennsylvania, New York, Florida, and many other states. And as we said in our emails to you, these are tumultuous times. In addition to the stressors we accept from as being attorneys, we've had our businesses, our home lives affected by COVID. We've had to adjust, we've had to change. The news brings us natural disasters, hurricanes, fires, one after the other. And our political climate is another source of stress. They say that both sides don't agree on anything, but there are two fundamental beliefs that both sides in our country share. The first belief is that the other side must be deluded to think as they do. And the second belief they share is that if the other side wins the election, the apocalypse will be upon us. So is it any surprise that you may be more stressed out than usual, a little bit more edgy, find it more difficult to relax? The things that you did before just are not working as well. So we all crave that deep rest and renewal and relaxation that comes from our source, our center, our core. And the beauty of that rest and renewal is it's not situational. If there's anxiety, that source and core is not anxious itself. If fear arises, there may be fear, but it's not afraid. If discord abounds, it's always at peace. I want that. Most people want that. How do we get that? How do we find that in our daily lives? This is what this course is about. So obviously the way that we directly encounter that is through meditation. So let me say a few things about meditation first off. A lot of people have a lot of different ideas about meditation. And we put in big, bold letters in our emails to you, it's easier to meditate than you think. So the first thing, a big misconception. Meditation is not about stopping your mind or stopping your thoughts. That is not the purpose of meditation. And I once gave a lecture about meditation, and afterwards, and I said that, and a young woman came up to me afterwards and with tears in her eyes and said, Thank you so much for saying that. I've always wanted to meditate, and my friends do it, and they say it's great. And I've tried it, but I just can't stop my mind. So if you've heard, wow, meditation is stopping your mind, throw that out the window. Meditation is not about getting rid of anything. So let me give you a metaphor here. Meditation is more a shift in focus. So let's take a big painting in the museum, a landscape, let's say. Now, our attention is naturally drawn to the foreground. Why? The figures are bigger in the foreground. They're painted in more detail. There's more action occurring. It grabs our attention. All meditation is doing is shifting the focus. Let me get this right. Shifting the focus from the foreground to the background. You notice we're not getting rid of the foreground. You don't have to take paint or hide the foreground to notice the background. It's just a shift in focus. And obviously in this metaphor, the foreground here are our thoughts, our feelings, our sense perceptions, what's happening all the time. The background is that core, that source, that which is aware, that upon which the foreground rests, that without which the foreground couldn't exist. But you don't have to get rid of one to see the other. It's just a slight focus. And that's what meditation is. We're just going to move our focus a little bit today from the foreground to experience that background. And hopefully, this is a practice that you can take with you. So very quickly at any time during the day, anytime, you can tap into that. All right, so now also, this hour is for you and for me too, and Will, to relax and enjoy ourselves. And as I said before, to be able to meditate on your own. And also for type A personalities, and a lot of us, I was a trial lawyer, I'd like to win. I did a lot of appeals. I like to get a reversal, which I did on occasion, and affirmance if I'm the appellee. For those type A personalities, you can't do this wrong. So don't worry about getting it right. I'm going to give you a lot of instruction today. It's not anything you have to remember. These are just instructions that are seeping in today. Now, this is a 1-hour webcast. You can see me, I can't see you, you can't see other participants. And we have questions here. We have a question and answer. So you can ask your questions in writing. You can give Will a signal by raising your hand somewhere on your icon row, and you can ask your question orally, and you can be seen and ask your question if you'd like to do that. Your questions, by the way, we're going to address at the end of the hour. Now, I'm going to be here as long as it takes to answer all the questions. I know some of you have to leave after our hour. This will be recorded. You can see all the questions and answers later. You'll get the recording. But if we can't answer all the questions, I will stay as long as it takes to answer all the questions. By the way, if you have a technical issue, there's a chat box and Will monitors that. So if you have a volume issue or something's happening in that regard, will look at it and hopefully take care of it. This is eligible for CLE in Oregon and Florida. It's eligible for CLE in New York. We will send New York attendees there certificates so you can get your CLE. And I know in Florida, New Jersey, New York, if you take a CLE from another jurisdiction, they'll accept it. I don't know if you're attending from another state, how your state works, but we will certainly help you obtain a CLE in another jurisdiction. Okay, now, place-wise, you want to find a place that is without distraction as best you can. So if you're at the office, ask your assistant to hold your calls. If you are at home, shut the door, do your best to be without distraction. Also, if this is lunchtime for you or even breakfast time on the West Coast and you have a big sub sandwich that you were going to eat during this hour, my advice is to put it aside and give all your attention to this hour. Turn off your cell phone, hold your calls. So let's talk a little bit about the outer posture of meditation. Now, you want to keep your spine erect, your shoulders are relaxed in a comfortable, relaxed, seated position, and we'll meditate with the eyes closed. Now, there's nothing mysterious about that. Having your eyes closed minimizes external distractions, the visual distraction. Also, there's nothing mystical about sitting with a straight spine. It's just you're naturally more alert. You can meditate lying down, but our body associates the prone position with sleep and rest, so it's easier to doze off. So sit up, sit comfortably, have your feet on the floor. Your hands can just lay on your thighs or between your thighs. And we want to have a relaxed attention. So what does that mean? And a good analogy is a camera. In a camera, you're trying to focus so you get that sweet spot where everything is clear. Now, if you underfocus, it's blurry. In meditation, underfocus is kind of not enough attention, dozing off, nodding off. But as with the camera, you can overfocus and it's blurry too. And the analogy in meditation to overfocus is a little bit too wired, trying too hard. So you want to find that sweet spot for yourself, which is, let's call it a relaxed attention. Now, I don't have to sell you on why meditation is a good thing because you're already here. But I will say that opposed to the lawyers of my generation, younger lawyers especially are saying, look, we don't want to be taken over by stress with all the consequences that that involves, that we want to find a way to practice law and do it in a healthy manner. And bar associations, especially the Florida Bar, has recognized that with its health and wellness campaign. The reason I'm doing this and I'm teaching this because I've meditated my entire life and I know it works. I had one of the most stressful cases you can ever imagine, the Terri Schiavo right to die case. And from death threats and having to move out of my house and being up and down the court system and being 5 courts at the same time and having briefing schedules in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal where a brief is initial brief, answer brief, reply brief is all done in the same day, and then you do the same thing the next day. I know what stress is in litigation and our practice, and you do too. And I'm just saying, for me, I'm so grateful for having this practice. I don't know how I would have done it without this practice. And whether it's meditation or something else, we need something to assist us, especially in those hyper stressful times. And there's the old saying, you don't start digging the well when the house is on fire. So you don't say, hey, I think I'll learn meditating while while you're going through, let's say, a case like I did. So to have that practice, to have that at your disposal is a fantastic asset. It works for me, and that's why I started doing this, because I'm hoping to share this with others. Now, the last thing before we start meditating, and by the way, the meditation, we're going to do it in segments, 5 to 7 minute segments. So don't worry, we're not just going to sit there for the next 40 minutes and meditate. Trust your experience. This is about you, your direct experience. I might be giving you pointers and clues. They may be helpful, but don't rely on what I say. Don't rely on what anyone else has told you. This is about you. This is your time. Trust your direct experience. Okay. Enough talking, as many a judge has told me. So we're first going to do a body relaxation and centering. So close your eyes. And just for a moment, see the contrast between talking and silence. Take in the silence for a moment. Now feel the soles of your feet against the floor, against the instep of your shoes. Just feel that sensation. The sensation may feel tingly. It's not solid, it moves around, kind of morphs from one spot to another. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to change. There's just sensation. Now feel the sensation of the air touching the skin on the back of your hands. It might feel light. It might feel wispy. There may be a moistness there. Again, nothing to do, nothing to think about. Notice you don't have to think at all to experience sensation. You might feel your heart beating. Just a faint feeling of pressure, rhythmic pressure in the chest. There may be a sound the heating or air conditioning system. You may feel the tiny muscles around your eyes, your cheeks. Now feel your breathing. It may be the feeling of the muscles in your abdomen pushing out as your diaphragm moves in and out. It's just pure sensation. Or you may feel the air entering and exiting the tip of the nostrils. There's nothing to control. Nothing to do. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. That was 6 minutes. That's just an indication of how deeply you can relax in just 6 minutes of time. So when I was putting this course together, the word authenticity came to me. So how does that tie in with meditation? How does it tie in with practicing law? And I define authenticity as acting from your core, your center, your source. And why do we value authenticity so much? It's because there's a truth to it. It stems from the truth. There's an element of truth. And I may be stretching words here, an element, but there's truth in our source, our core. And acting from that source and core is acting authentically. And I have found that acting authentically or practicing law authentically is, number one, highly effective, and also much less stressful. Now, why is that? Juries know, for instance, they have a keen common sense, if you've ever done jury work. I'm not saying you can never put one over on a jury, but they pretty much know if someone is giving them a line. And why is that? Why do we know and sense authenticity from when we see it? Is because we're intimately familiar with our own inauthenticity. We know how, like a pufferfish, how we enlarge ourselves and make ourselves look better here and there, and maybe some of it's innocent or whatever, but we're so intimately familiar with our own inauthenticity that we see it and we value it so much. And in a vernacular, authenticity is being who you are. And there's a relaxation and relief in being who you are because it's your default position. You don't have to do anything to be who you are. And number two, you don't have to, you can't lose yourself. You can't lose who you are. And you don't have to pretend to be something else. There's no pretense. And I call pretense the preamble to tension. And so why is that so? Because when we're pretending, you have to expend, number one, more energy to be what you are. And there's also that risk and anxiety that, uh-oh, I'll be discovered. I'll be found out. Oh no. What if the judge knows that I'm really not as smart as I'm pretending I am? So there's always that little trapdoor when we're pretending. So acting authentically, acting from where you are, who you are, takes away the stress and anxiety of pretense. So that's not to say we don't play roles, and we're moms and dads, sisters and brothers and attorneys and or judges, or we play our role, but we know we're playing a role. We don't get lost in it. We're not identified with that role. So when we talk about the truth, we can ask ourselves the question, for us, what is real? And in our society, the expressions of that authenticity are well known. This is Laertes speaking to his Polonius speaking to his son Laertes in Hamlet, "To thine own self be true." And in the current vernacular, it's "get real." So here's a couple definitions of real. One is that which cannot not exist, that which always exists, and that which doesn't change. Now you may say, well, hold on a second. Everything changes. The only constant is change. So does that core, does that source, does that reality change? That's what we're interested in here, in discovering and encountering today. That which doesn't change. And so our next meditation, we're going to look at what changes, the foreground, all the time, constantly. And by seeing the foreground in a slightly different way, as we're going to do in this meditation, we can start to realize and notice the background. So there's a list of 3 things: bodily sensations, sense perceptions, and thoughts. That summarizes everything in the foreground, everything that happens. Now you may say, no, there's more happening than that, but let's see. Bodily sensations, of course, is, I feel a pain, I feel a sensation in my foot, I have an earache. These are all bodily sensations. Then, of course, we have sense perceptions: what we see, what we hear, what we taste, etc. And then we have our thoughts, which you could say are subtle sense perceptions in a way. In other words, our thoughts come to us visually. You can think of a word written out. Your thoughts can come orally. Your internal dialogue, we can smell, we can taste in our thoughts. So all 3 of these we're going to take a look at in our next meditation. So You're doing great, by the way. So sit comfortably. We've been sitting a half hour. You might kind of circle your shoulders back and forth. Close your eyes. Just sink in, feel the sensation of the feet on the floor again. That's a bodily sensation. The sound of my voice. That's hearing. That's a sense perception. The feeling of the muscles in the head, bodily sensation. The thought, oh, I have to draft that pleading this afternoon. That's just a thought. Notice that whatever is happening, all three arise, they're present, and they dissolve and go away. You may hear a phone ringing. Sense perception. It wasn't ringing before, it's ringing now, and it stops ringing. The thought, what am I doing here? Taking this webinar. Where was it before you thought it? Where is it now after it's gone? Ask yourself, what is it that is aware, that knows this thought? Thoughts don't think themselves. What is it that's aware of a bodily sensation? What knows that the sensation of the bottom of the feet is a sensation and not a thought? What is it? What is the background upon which all these thoughts, sensations, and sense perceptions occur? Imagine yourself as the sky. Vast, endless space. And there are clouds. They come and they go. They're constantly changing shape and form. Those are the clouds of your thoughts, sensations, sense perceptions. Just let them pass through. Does the sky care what shape the cloud is? Does the sky care whether the clouds are gray or black or if there's lightning or thunder, or none at all. Just let the objects of the foreground pass through. Now notice the sound of my voice, the knowing, your knowing of the sound of my voice. Can you locate it? The sensation of the feet on the floor. Where is that known? Is there a separate awareness that knows bodily sensations rather than sense perception? Is there a little awareness box for hearing and one for bodily sensations, one for sense perceptions, one for bodily sensations, one for thoughts? Or are all the objects in the foreground known in the same way, in the same place or no place at all? Don't think about it, just see. Just see for yourself. And know the peace of being the sky, the unperturbed sky, the unperturbed expanse of knowing, into which the foreground objects appear and then eventually fade away. And then slowly open your eyes. So we got a taste there of what we have been calling the background. And also we've got a sense and taste there of how when you fall into the background or rest in the background, how those foreground objects seem to lose much of their importance or their ability to grab your attention. So as I mentioned, for purposes of our discussion, we're going to give that background the word awareness, that which is real. We're going to call it awareness. I guess that's a noun. You could call it a verb, awaring, because it's really not a thing. It's more of a, well, it's hard to describe in words. So we're going to next, in our final meditation, explore more deeply that awareness. And so how do we do that? We do that through an internal posture of non-interference. And let's talk about that a little bit. What are the ways in which we interfere, so to speak? Well, you have a thought, a bodily sensation, a sense perception. And we have a comment about it, an opinion, a judgment about it. We like it, we don't like it. If we see somebody walking down the street, oh, nice suit. Don't they know how to don't they know how to dress themselves? Don't they know those colors don't go together? It could be judgment, good, bad. It doesn't matter. We have this running commentary, this voice in our, I'll say in our head metaphorically, this voice that we hear that we think is us, that judgment and comment. So that's one way of interference. Most of the times it's obviously not needed, it's habitual. And you could say, well, George, hold on a second. How could I ever not judge, not comment? Well, the only thing you have to do is notice. The notice and seeing of it is all that is required. So if you have a thought, hey, why am I taking this seminar? What a waste of money. Or boy, I'm happy I took this seminar. I would have paid double. You know, whatever that is, yeah, that's a comment, that's a judgment. But just noticing it, judging, commenting. Another way is liking and disliking. We're attracted to things, we're averse to things. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just attraction, it's just aversion. You don't have to get rid of it. It's impossible. It's impossible to get rid of our preferences, our likes and dislikes, but we don't have to give them meaning, and we don't have to pay them attention. We project into the past. We project into the future. We remember the past. That's another way of interference. We could call all of these resistance. It's like the universe is just universing itself and unfolding, and like our opinion about it is going to change it one way or another. So meditation, that non-interference, is just a process of letting that resistance settle. And it's a skill. It's something that you can do with practice. So you see the pictures there. You have the jar full of sediment, and you can't see through it. It's just a black thing. But as the dust, as the particles start to settle, it begins to get clear until in the last one, without the particles being agitated, there's a clarity. And that's how meditation is. The more you stop trying to run the show, so to speak, things just naturally settle down. And so if you take, you can't do it by, you can't make the sediment settling by, well, I think I'll put a spoon in and move it this way or move it that way, or I'll do this or I'll do that. Just agitates it even more. So we do this by seeing and not interfering. Now, so that's non-interference. The other way that we're going to explore awareness is welcoming, or we can call that benign indifference. And let me give you a couple of metaphors here. You put a blue vase in front of a mirror, it reflects a blue vase. You take that away, you put a pink vase. The mirror doesn't say, man, I only like reflecting blue. I don't like reflecting pink. Get that out. No, the mirror is totally choiceless. It doesn't care whether it's blue or pink or what color or what's put in front of it. It's just reflects it equally. That's a welcoming, a benign indifference. Another helpful metaphor is you have your flat screen TV. Now, if I walk in my living room, I can see the flat screen TV. When I'm watching a program, I don't see the screen. I see the action, you get involved in the story. So again, the screen is the background. The action are the objects. The screen doesn't care whether the movie playing is a beautiful, sweet romance or a horrible, violent war or catastrophe. The screen has no preference. There's a benign indifference. So what we do, the more we meditate, is that we see the story, we see what's on the screen, we enjoy it. It's fun, we see the play, but we're always anchored to the screen itself, that which the story appears on, that which without the story can't exist. But without the story, the screen exists. So this is a lot. Don't be concerned, oh, I have to remember all of this. You're going to get a recording of this. You can listen to it again. I'm just planting suggestions for you. So what we're going to do now is our final meditation. And we're going to look at that awareness, look at that background, experience it in a different way. Okay. Relax. Close your eyes. Again, center yourself by feeling the sensation of the soles of your feet. Maybe your bottom against the chair. Just feel those sensations, sink into those sensations. If there's a thought, just let it go. If you have a comment about something, it's just fine. Just resistance to thoughts and sensations and bodily sensations. Resistance just puts the fuel on the fire, empowers them. Just let them be. You're just not concerned about them. You're interested. You're like a scientist. You're like an explorer. What is it that those objects appear in? What is it? Just be that awareness, be that sky. Now that awareness, that which knows, does it have a boundary? Is it limited in that way? Is there a place you can go to, like a fence, where that awareness is on one side, but it's not on the other side? Is there any spot, crevice, anywhere where there's no awareness, where the sky ends? Or is it limitless? Don't think about the answer, just see. Just see for yourself. and be that limitlessness. Be without boundaries. This sky, this knowing, this awareness, does it have a color? That which knows and is aware of my words, does it have a color? Well, we know that infinite colors appear in it, but does it have a color? And for that matter, does it have a shape? Does it have a form? Is it square or round? Or is it colorless, shapeless? What is it? Can it be an object, this awareness, if it has no shape, no form, no limit? Is it limited by time? Again, don't think about an answer. Just ask yourself the question, is there any moment that you know of where this awareness did not exist? Can you remember it ever not being here? Is it spiritual or religious? Does it have a religious persuasion? Can it be limited? Can any attribute be placed on it? Now just sink into that awareness, into that core, into that knowing. And ask yourself, does it have a gender? Is it male, female, genderless? Does gender have any meaning to it? Just sink into the alive knowing. And feel the peace. That is not subject to any situation or reason. Just the peace of who you are. And slowly open your eyes. So I hope together we've been able to recognize what is always there, what is always at our center, what is always at our core, what is always available to us. I did mention that meditation is a practice. There's a skill to this. So I advise you to do this on a daily basis. Even if it's 5-10 minutes a day at a start, do this on a daily basis. We have meditations online on the YouTube channel, George Felos YouTube channel, on our meditationforlawyers.org website. You can listen to this tape, or there's one on our web channel, Exploring the Background, which has these meditations without the talk in between, which is if you want a guided meditation. But do this every day. And then after a month, see how you are. See if there's a difference. See if there's a change. You can contact me with any questions at any time. You have my phone number, my email address. We appreciate feedback, so let us know if we can do this better or there's another way we can serve you. There's information, questions and answers on our website. If you have a group or organization that would like to do this, let us know. We can do something particularly for your group. This is also in Florida, permitted or accredited for up to 3 CLE hours. We have an expanded version which talks a little bit more about how to practice law authentically in a more practical sense. So if you're in a state attorney's office, public defender's office, larger law firm, we'd be happy to work with you. This is recorded. You're going to get a copy of the recording, hopefully by tomorrow. So, Will, we have 2 minutes left for questions, but as I said, stay as long. We'll stay as long as you have questions. So let's start. Let's start with the questions. And I see on the Q&A we have a question from James. I tried to get meditation instruction from teachers, but they wanted thousands of dollars and couldn't tell me what it was. The highly secretive nature of the teaching and the evasiveness of the answers made me highly skeptical. I am, at my core, a lawyer. So I didn't pay and walked out on the marketing session. I am also unclear on what people mean by meditation. People talk about mindfulness and many other things that are supposed to be meditation. Can the panelists explain what it is? Well, James wrote that question. James wrote that question at 12:01. So I hope, James, that if you stayed for the hour, that a lot of your questions have been answered. Gee, I think $45 compared to thousands of dollars is a good bargain. Obviously, if somebody wants thousands of dollars from you and aren't going to tell you what they're doing, that's not from you. That's not for you, and you used good judgment. Also, there's nothing secretive about this. This is nothing mystical. In a way, it's very scientific. It's very scientific. You're looking at the facts as you see them yourself. I also wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness because we get questions. You hear a lot about mindfulness meditation. And mindfulness is a Buddhist meditation practice called Vipassana, which I'm very familiar with, which I did for many years. And in Vipassana, what your interest and focus is on the objects, the nature of the objects, the transience of the objects. This meditation is very different. Here, we're not concerned about the objects, but we're concerned at the core what it is that that knows the object. So that's a different type of meditation. Also, let me just say with teachers, you have to use your common sense, you have to use your good judgment, and you have to, having a skeptical mind is important, and you do what works for you. And so, James, I'm kind of interested to see if you did spend the hour with us, whether a lot of your questions were answered. Okay, now, next question is Wendy. Wendy asks, how do we get CLE credit? Anything I need to do? Now, it depends what state you're from. If you are from Florida or Oregon, when we send you tomorrow or the next day the recording of the webinar, we'll send you the CLE or MCLE course number. And then in Florida, I know you just go online and we register our credits online. You put in the course number, the 1 credit hour, and I think you do the same in Oregon. In New York, we will send you, the New York participants, a certificate. And so when we send out the recording, we will ask the New York attorneys for their name, address, email address. We will prepare the certificate and send it back to them. And then they just report as they would a New York credit. So that's all you need to do. Okay, Thomas asks, if you fall asleep during your meditation or tend to nod off, are you gaining anything from the process? Well, yeah, you're gaining rest, because if you were tired, if the reason you fell asleep is because your body needed sleep, then you're gaining something, you're gaining rest. But now there's two types of tiredness. One is a resistance to the meditation. And the other is just like your body needs rest. So if your body needs rest, maybe take a nap, meditate later. But if the tiredness is a resistance to the meditation, and you can experiment with this while you're meditating, then there are a couple things you could do. One is tiredness is a concept. So look at the bodily sensation. My eyelids feel heavy. What is the sensation of my eyelids feeling heavy? Just move into the sensation. And without judgment, without comment, become interested. Become interested in the sensations of tiredness. And tiredness, if it is a belief system, well, because I have these sensations, therefore I'm tired. If that's the case, then look at the thought and say, is that thought correct based upon these sensations? And so if the tiredness is a resistance to doing the meditation, a form of resistance, then explore it in that way. And you may find a lot of bodily sensations that come up, oh, a pain in the knee, or, a little nervousness, agitation, is a resistance to the meditation. And when you look at it as a sensation, often that resistance evaporates. So Thomas, you want to explore that. James says, yes, I'm still here. Good. Wendy, if you see your third eye, does it have a certain meaning if it is open or closed? So for those of you who may not be familiar with that term, the third eye is a sort of a mystical, esoteric word for this spot in the forehead, and it represents also the, I guess, symbolic energy system they call the chakra system. And to Wendy, I would say the best approach in this meditation is to not give importance or meaning to objects. So the third eye, or the experience of the third eye, you may see light. Well, if it's light, that is a thought in the form of vision. It's just a thought arising or passing. You might feel something there. It could be a bodily sensation. It could be a little heat or tingly. Those are bodily sensations. But the thing there, Wendy, is that is a subtle way of taking your attention from the background to the foreground to the object. I'm not saying there's not a value in that. I remember I lived in Rishikesh, India with a Swami for 2 months. Swami I met in the States, and he happened to invite me to come and live with him for 2 months, and I did. And I said, Swami, I've been doing Vipassana meditation. I said, Swami, what meditation do you do here? And he looked at me very strangely and said, what meditation do you do? And I said, well, sometimes I focus on the third eye. I meditate on the sensation of the breath, which are meditating on objects. And he said, why would you want to do that? If you meditate on the breath, you can become a master of the breath. If you meditate on the third eye, you may become a master of something else. But what we're interested in is that which is aware of the breath, that which is aware of the sensation of the third eye directly to your core. So in mysticism, that's why I say this is scientific and not mystical. In mysticism, it's easy to go off on these tangents where we're interested directly in experiencing that which knows, that which is the source, that which is not dependent upon any object. Okay, Lisa asks, thank you for this problem. Was that a Freudian slip? Thank you for this program. I hope it's not a problem. What if my muscles want stretching and sitting with it and observing it without taking action? Oh, it says that feels so hard if my muscles want stretching and sitting. Can I be curious about it and then stretch? Do you recommend starting a meditation practice first thing in the morning? What are your thoughts on guided meditations like in the Calm app? Okay, Lisa, this is not I know in Vipassana meditation, whatever you sat for your 45 minutes and whatever came up, you didn't move, you sat through it. No, I don't subscribe to that. I mean, if you need to stretch, stretch. If you need to get up. The idea that you can lose the meditation by becoming distracted in stretching or moving is just a misconception. We can never lose what we are, that core, that awareness, that knowing. It can't be lost. And so if you want to stretch, just stretch. It's just the movement is just a physical sensation. The thought I want to stretch is just a thought. It's just, you can't in essence be distracted from your meditation by doing that. So, when I was answering the previous question, sometimes these little feelings and sensations may be a way of resistance to the meditation. So you may explore them, you may be interested in them. But if they're not too interesting and there's nothing to explore, you just need to stretch, then you stretch. For me, I meditated first thing in the morning. The reason is, again, you could do it at any time. The reason for me is once I got up and if I didn't meditate first, I did this or did that, I got distracted and I ended up not meditating. So it was a good time for me. Some people do it before they go to bed. So I think it's a good time meditating in the morning, but you do what works for your schedule. Let's see here. What are your thoughts on guided meditation? Whatever helps you. I don't do any guided meditation, but in the beginning, it may be helpful and suggestions may be helpful. You have to go with your intuition there. It's what is working for you. In the beginning, guided meditations may work for you. For me, after a short time, and this is just me personally, I just didn't do guided meditations. And the Calm app, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it, so I can't make a comment on that. Wendy adds, I think you can stretch, but you should stay in place. If you are sitting, stay seated. Yeah, you can do that. You can, if you want to stretch your legs, you can stay seated. You know, sometimes if in meditations, if I was tired and I was nodding off, I stood up in place and meditated standing up. You know, there's no hard and fast rules. The thing about meditation is it works if you have an interest in it. That's the currency of meditation, your interest in it. Then all these little things don't matter because you're interested in it. If you're doing it, but you're really not interested, don't do it. Do something else at the moment. Then it just becomes a routine practice. So your interest guides you. And so I would say follow your interest. And if you're interested, I want to know the truth about myself. I want to see what's going on. That will guide you. Okay. Lisa says, thank you. This is very helpful and a much needed program for lawyers. You're very welcome, Lisa. Anonymous attendee. How did George says he's been doing this his whole life. How did George find the discipline to begin meditating on a regular basis? What suggestions do you have for a newcomer to find the discipline to do this regularly? Well, in the beginning, there is a bit of discipline, but as I mentioned in my last answer, a large part of this is the interest. I play the piano. If I want to learn a new piece, in fact, I've been learning a new Bach invention, and I'm not a great pianist, so it's a lot of learning. And there's part of it you might call is a discipline. Yeah, I have to sit down, I have to practice some passages slowly, but there's a love there. I want to do it. I want to play it. When I play a passage and it kind of starts to sound okay, there's just such a feeling of joy. So although there's a bit of discipline there as well, there's the interest and love for it. And so in the beginning, yeah, if you're going to get up an extra half hour because you want to meditate and the alarm goes off, you know, your first thought might be saying, I just want to sit back and or of course keep lying down or get some more sleep. Or you might say, hey, I do want to do this meditation. So again, it's important to have the interest. Now to stoke your interest and nurture it, because you're planting a seedling, you want it to grow and that interest to be fully formed, there are things you can do. Go to a meditation class, meditate in a group. That's very powerful, meditating with others. And so there are things to do to stoke your interest, increase your interest, and then it doesn't become so much a discipline anymore. It's something that you're doing because you're interested. Okay, another anonymous attendee asks, what thoughts does the meditation community have on pharmaceuticals for relaxation, anxiety, stress reductions, as opposed to or in combination with regular meditation? That's a question that takes up a lot of discussion, and there's been a lot of discussion about that in the meditation community among meditation teachers. And there are various opinions about it. So you start where you are. If you happen to be on relaxation, anxiety, stress reduction medication and you want to meditate, I'm not saying stop taking your meditation, start meditating. Start meditating. Also, there are some people who just literally may be too anxious to sit down for 10 minutes. And for that reason, they take, they'd be unable to meditate. And so they take that, that medication. So I would say that if you're taking that medication, there's no reason why you can't start meditating. And I would recommend to you that you read. There's a lot of literature on that, but don't let that be, if you're interested in meditation, don't let that be an impediment to you meditating. So Will, I think that's all the questions. Are there any more hiding in the recesses of the internet here?
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you all. It's been a delight. It's been a real privilege to be with you today. Be well, and again, I'm a resource. You want to call me, need me to ask a question or for a suggestion, I'm available. Take care, be well.